we have a special guest. His name is Sage. Sage, say hello to the camera, to our audience here. Please say hello, Sage. Look at it. There you go. There you go. Today's topic will be about the vaccine. They have found the vaccine yesterday. It's been announced that Russia has discovered or finalized their vaccine, and they named it Sputnik 5 after the first satellite that was launched in 1957. So today I decided to take you on a virtual walk with me, and we're going to talk about this charade and how it was played out on a global scale and what was behind it. Actually, after they made the announcement last night that the vaccine was found, now we understand why the requirement was placed on everybody to wear the masks, and it was all about the money, folks. Everything in today's world is primarily about the money. Russia has pre-sold, even though they just announced that the vaccine has been successfully tested. Russia has pre-sold $1.5 trillion worth of vaccines to the Asian countries and some other countries around the world. So now you understand the significance of being the first country in this fake pandemic to announce that there is a cure for this fake virus. The virus is real, but the urgency and the mask wearing and everything else was hyped up to essentially duplicate what was done in 2007 and 8 and 9. I'm referring to the, of course, to the subprime mortgage crisis that was artificially created, inflated, and then the bubble burst. And another bubble burst in the year 2000. Remember the dot-com market crash? Same thing, folks. It keeps happening and happening. It all started with the Great Depression, the market crash of 1929, of course. They really cut their teeth really well at that time, and they keep doing it and doing it, except this time they're doing it and they're laughing at all of us. They call us sheep or dumb sheep. And remember in 9/11, that was I almost forgot 9/11, how they wanted us to take our shoes off when we get on the airplane. They look at us, you know, they fly, obviously they don't fly commercial, so they're, and if you go to an FBO is an abbreviation for a private airport for private jets. They don't have to go through a TSA. If you're flying private aviation does not require you. You just roll up in your car up to your plane, and the pilot tells you everything's ready, and then you fly wherever you want. So they're laughing at all of the sheep that has to take their shoes off. But they made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in that scam. Yeah, they had to bring down 3 buildings, the 2 twin towers that were destroyed by some kind of a very advanced weapon from the sky. It was a satellite, perhaps, it was an airplane, but something in the sky that evaporated, pulverized those buildings, folks, pulverized. There was nothing left of them, absolutely nothing. And those buildings don't fall down like that, as it was attested to by the civil engineers who actually specialize in demolition. 1,500 engineers, or civil engineers, got together and they did their own report that in their 40 years of experience, no building ever fell like those twin towers, meaning they were built to withstand such impact, especially like the Empire State Building was flown into by airplanes several times, and it still stands. And those buildings were 12 times, 40 times stronger than the Empire State Building. So it was that those 2 buildings were pulverized. It's a demonstration of power. It's a demonstration of a hidden agenda, a hidden power of the elite, the ruling class of America and the world, perhaps. And what is their agenda, folks? It's to enslave you, all of us, and create this new world order. And this new world order will essentially enslave us to the degree, I mean, why do you think they allow for free videos to be uploaded on YouTube and Facebook and other social media. It costs a lot of money to maintain those servers and those data centers. Just for one location in Utah, they pay $2 billion per month in just the electric bill. Who is paying for all this? Why? Remember, when you go to a restaurant, and at a restaurant, the proprietor, the owner of the restaurant says, "This luxurious meal is on me, enjoy it." Hopefully you would begin to wonder, what did he put in the food? Why is it free? I'd like to pay for this meal. Well, but when they say you can upload a 4K video footage, and just for your information, I uploaded a 4K 1 minute long video. It was almost 1 gigabyte. Just a little shy of 1 gigabyte. 1 minute long video. So a 60-minute long video would be 60 gigabytes. And imagine if 7 billion people start uploading 60 gigabytes worth of their worthless stuff, nonsense. At least we're covering something useful here. But people dancing and making faces, it's like a caricature of the human race going to the toilet. So who is funding all this, and for what purpose? Folks, I'm going to tell you who is funding and for what purpose right now. It is being done so that the supercomputer will know everything about you. And so the idea, folks, is very simple. Right now, the computer is actually studying you, your emails, your text messages, your phone conversations, your videos, your YouTube feed, your Twitter feed, everything that's out there. Studying your voice, studying your past. And actually, they started in a more primitive way. Remember when they introduced free Hotmail and Yahoo account about 20 years ago? Everybody jumped on, and now it's 6 gigabytes of free space and people said that was great, free stuff. And folks, there's nothing free under a capitalistic system. Absolutely nothing. If you have socialistic system, of course, everything's free. The education is free. Medical services are free. But it's a different world, you see. Under a capitalistic system, nothing is free. So when they say it's free email, Yahoo email, Hotmail, YouTube, there has to be a reason why it's offered quote-unquote free. And the reason is they want to study you. They want you out to essentially give up all of your most private information. And that way in the future, when we'll have autonomous cars, which are being tested right now in the state of California and a few other states, imagine in just a few years when they'll introduce the Beast. That's the supercomputer that's currently being tested at MIT. It's a quantum computer that is beyond anything we can imagine. Beyond anything we can imagine as far as its computational powers. It's unfathomable power. And so it will be able to essentially serve as our God. All-knowing entity that knows everything about you. From the day when you first wrote your email, and especially all your silly, stupid YouTube videos and Facebook posts. Will know everything about you. Such minute detail will have a human-like voice, just like the same way I'm talking to you right now. It will be able to understand humor and joke back at you. You can actually have a little banter going with that computer. And long story short, once it's introduced, it will replace everything we know as we know it today. It will actually be able to control basically the air traffic. It will be controlling all the trains. It will be controlling all of the auto traffic on our streets. And most importantly, folks, it will be talking to you and I through what Elon Musk is working on right now, Neuralink, his company that he just founded in 2016 with $125 million. Neuralink is a company that right now is actually searching for the best way to serve as an interface between a computer and a human brain. So at Neuralink, they're located in San Francisco, California. What they do is they've hired top scientists, neurobiologists, surgeons, and using robotic devices like a Da Vinci arm. It's a type of a robotic device that does remote surgery. So with using robotic precision arms, surgical arms, they drill a hole in the skull of a human patient, and they insert electrodes, microscopic electrodes. And they're basically, at this point, they're just recording the brain activity, and in the future they'll be affecting the brain in such a way that a quadriplegic person would be able to actually perhaps be able to, function and be active. At least that's what they say. But in the end, that particular interface eventually would replace our keyboard and our computer mouse. And so everything will be done, well, at first using the Oculus glasses, what Google introduced a few years ago. But eventually everything will be actually replaced with this man-machine integration using this interface device that they're working on at Neuralink currently. So through that, essentially by a computer that will be built into your brain, you'll be able to get those images, access the web, and of course the supercomputer would be able to know everything. It will be in your business all the way, no pun intended here. And so what is the future, folks? What's the purpose of this video? It's to give you some hope that God is still here, and he gives us wisdom and information how to be prepared. This is the mark of the beast, essentially, if you were wondering, from the book of Revelation, when John was on the island of Patmos. It's off the coast of Greece. It's a small island where they essentially, when they used to send prisoners, kind of like Australia for the crown, for England. Australia was just a prison land. So Patmos was a prison island where John was sitting in a cell inside a cave. It was 2 meters by 2 meters. There was no toilet, there was no food. The only thing he got was water and just a little bit of bread once a week. So being in that state of mind, John was writing the book of Revelation on the island of Patmos, sitting in a 2 by 2 square meter little cell. And what did he see, folks? What did he see? Well, John was able to, perhaps most importantly, he was hallucinating because he didn't eat, he didn't sleep. Remember, he had to go to the bathroom in his own little cell that was part of the cave that was closed off. So he did not even see the daylight, folks. There was perhaps a little opening, but it was just for a few hours during the day. So in that state of mind, if you actually are held in that condition, you have to put yourself in his shoes. Island of Patmos, you're actually deprived of sleep, deprived of food, there's no toilet. And then you begin to see these revelations. So what do you see, folks? Well, that's whatever he saw in his hallucinations, he actually penned down. He wrote down and later became known as the Book of Revelation. And now we're trying to decipher something that is indecipherable because of, keep in mind, his state of mind was catastrophic. Today, if we have mental asylums, that was much worse than today's mental asylums. It was 100 times worse. It was beyond description type of it. So this is just a little sort of a off the tangent with what is the message for Agape Ministries. First of all, agape means, that's a Greek word. Everything the foundation comes from the Greek language, because the New Testament was written in Greek, and that was the language of the day, like English is today. So in Greek, agape means the most perfect, beautiful, powerful, unconditional love that comes only from God. And no one else has that type of a, it's the highest form of divine love, long story short. And this is why Agape Ministries is pivotal in this role of bringing the latest non-secular news to you and a perspective that you'll never hear anywhere else. On the news, when they announced that Russia has found the vaccine, it was a clear indication that the world is moving closer to the New World Order. Why? Because obviously the country of Russia will make a lot of money from it. Number two, we will get closer. Nobody knows what they're going to put into they're talking nano particles that will keep track of us eventually. I'm not saying immediately, but it's like a ploy. Once you become part of the medical system in the US, once they discover cancer, you're done, because they're not going to cure cancer. You're going to get worse. And you have a span of about 6 months. They try to keep you alive just to feed the system. Because you as a patient, if you have cancer, or if they tell you have cancer, in the United States at least, you represent anywhere between $100,000 to a couple of $1 million to that doctor or to that medical institution who will be quote-unquote treating you. But they're simply postponing your imminent, inevitable death. It's a form of execution disguised as we're doing everything we can. That's why when you see a commercial of those cleanly shaven men and women on it, they're preparing you psychologically. Well, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to lose your hair. Folks, you don't lose your hair because you have cancer. You lose your hair because they put most deadly chemicals into your body. You understand? So if you don't put those chemicals, you don't lose your hair. So this whole charade again, and that's a big industry, $350 billion a year. Anybody touches it, you disappear essentially. So the prison industry, same thing in the United States. It's huge. Just a payphone in a US-based prison, just a payphone, meaning a phone where inmates go to place, collect calls. A collect call just in case if we're being watched in other countries, when you make a call and it's a long distance call, the party who accepts the call pays for it. Just to give you an idea, per one day, that payphone makes for the system $1,500 per day per payphone, and they have hundreds of them. So imagine, just on that level, just the payphone itself, folks, is a big money-making machine. But the rest, I'm not even going to delve into. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Everything that has to do under a capitalistic system with money, usually, you get my point. Basically, it's all about the money. And so, folks, the idea is very, very simple. The kingdom of God is kind of like socialism or communism. Essentially, is where, if you look at it idealistically, communism is where people have reached a certain level of evolution or awareness where they go to work for free. Money does not exist. Money ceases to exist. Of course, it sounds like a utopian society, but it's like Kingdom of Heaven, where everybody is so evolved. There's no theft. There's no bribery. Everybody goes to work with a smile on their face. This is communism. Actually, this is what Karl Marx wrote. When people will eventually evolve to such a degree that they'll go to work with a smile on their face without demanding. Money will disappear, essentially. Money will be, a baker will be baking bread while a taxi driver will take you wherever you need to go for free. So money will cease to exist. And that's the apex of human society, where humans will evolve to the degree where money is no longer needed. And that is communism, or this is the kingdom of heaven. When Jesus said, we will evolve to such a degree that we will not even need to look at the 10 commandments as a reference point, that means we have arrived. We have a perfect society, and it has evolved beyond anything we've done. So that's communism. That's the kingdom of heaven. Now, I'm not a proponent of either one. I'm just stating the facts. So I'm simply contrasting two systems. I'm contrasting socialism, which eventually was supposed to grow into communism, which it never happened. Socialism is simply a way towards communism that Karl Marx actually outlined. By the way, how did Karl Marx get this idea that all human beings are brothers and sisters on this planet, and there's no exploitation. One of the main premises of socialism and communism is no human exploitation is allowed, as it happens under a capitalistic system, where the rich, he called them bourgeoisie, which was a French word at that time, meaning the upper class, if you will. Today in America we would call them the elites, the upper class, the ruling class of America. At that time, Karl Marx called the the rich people bourgeoisie. So let's just call them rich people. Let's just use the contemporary language, folks. How did Karl Marx even get the idea to compare the exploitation of one rich person at the very top of the many, many, many poor people at the bottom is not cool? How did he come up with this idea? Well, I'll tell you how. One day he was actually walking in Germany through a forested, wooded place, and he noticed that a poor peasant was collecting some wood to warm his little log cabin, his little house, I guess, to burn the wood in his stove to keep his wife and children warm. And the owner of the land got very, very angry. He says, "No, you got to pay. You're not going to be collecting these branches that fall from my tree on my land." He says, "But sir, I don't have any money. I already work for you. You're already paying me less than anybody would even imagine." He says, "I don't care. If you will be collecting these dried up branches of trees, you're going to have to pay." And he gave him some kind of a tariff. He asked for some money from. And so this is where Karl Marx essentially, when he witnesses inhumane behavior of a bourgeoisie, of a rich person who is inhumanly exploiting another human being and saying, "Look, you already work for me. You're practically my slave." They were called peasants at that time. So you're my peasant, you work for me, I pay you barely anything. And now you're going to even have to pay for the branches that you collect to warm your house, basically. So he said from that moment he was so shocked when he witnessed this human tragedy, when a rich person who doesn't need any money is forcing another human being to give up everything. He says, "This is it. I'm going to end this nonsense." And he created essentially a new way of thinking, which is called socialism, which leads to communism, folks. There is no society that ever had communism in its final phase. It was only some socialistic countries that were in existence, like the Soviet Union, like Cuba. And by the way, Cuba, Fidel Castro, what happened to this guy? He came to America, wanted to be a baseball player, and he was dealt the wrong way. He was rubbed the wrong way. He was essentially, Fidel Castro was basically not allowed to play baseball. He was told he wasn't any good. He said, "I'll show you. You step on my foot, I'll show you what I can do." So he immediately got into a political sphere. He lined up with Nikita Khrushchev of the Soviet Union, and the rest is history. Cuba became socialistic, and so that's how it works, folks. This is how it works. So the idea, so we've connected Fidel Castro, we've connected Karl Marx to the human decency and what prompted Karl Marx to do what he did. He discovered injustice done by the rich or the bourgeoisie to the poor. They were already being exploited, and just, there's nothing left. And so Karl Marx said, "That's it, I'm going to put an end to this." So he sat down, he wrote his treatise, he outlined everything, and then he got together with Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. This whole thing is a pseudonym or a pen name. His real name was Vladimir Ulyanov. Last name Ulyanov, first name Vladimir. His father's name was Elijah or Ilya in Russian. So that's why in Russian culture, patronymic names are always used as a form of. In the English culture, it's different. But Vladimir Ilyich Lenin or Ulyanov was essentially his companion, Karl Marx's contemporary and companion, and his associate. So what they've designed is a new system that should be much fairer. It would be more fair to treat the poor people and reduce the abuse, or they called exploitation of the very rich that was happening by the rich of the poor. So that's a little introduction into the world of politics today, and how Karl Marx decided to essentially end the injustice that was being done by the rich to the poor, or the terminology he used was bourgeoisie. That's the French word for the people with the means. And then, of course, in his treatise, he said the means of production, when it's in the hands of private individuals, the bourgeoisie, that's the pivotal point of understanding the injustice. Because when the state owns, when I say a state, when a country owns the means of production, no injustice could exist, because the state is not a human being with its defective DNA, folks. So the state cannot sort of like ask for more money. The state actually gives and distributes the wealth. The state owns all the assets. The state owns all the means of production, meaning the factories, the plants. The state owns all of the assets. Yes, under a socialistic system, and then further down the line, and under communism, human beings would not own anything personally. Personal or private property does not exist. It's not an option. Everything is a collective. So if you go to a park, that park cannot belong to a private individual. If you go to a store to buy something, that store cannot belong to a private individual, like in the West, like in the capitalistic system. It's just not possible. So that's a little introduction to the kingdom of God that Jesus talked about, and I'm just sort of cross-referencing that with the socialistic system that was in existence for over 75 years in the Soviet Union, until it kind of disintegrated in 1991. And by the way, the disintegration was a military operation. Yes, military operatives actually got into the system, and they have undermined the highest rankings of the government officials. They were bribed, and they were mostly bribed, again, with money, greed. Human DNA is so defective, folks. It's unbelievable. That's why we need to keep our focus on something a little bit more permanent and perpetual and eternal. So, folks, on this note, I want to leave you with this political news and the political agenda. A new world order is about to be unveiled. The vaccine is just the entry point. And yes, they're going to make a lot of money off of that, but that's just one element out of money. Is not everything for them. Remember, they're already sitting on unlimited funds. They're not so much interested in money. Money is great. Money is great, but it's a side issue. The main issue is how to control the 7 billion people on this planet, because things are out of control. From the standpoint of the world elites, folks. From the standpoint of the world elites, things are completely out of control. And why is that, you might ask? Well, because how they would like things to be. And so, folks, on this note, I'm going to just sort of point here and show, look at this beautiful, beautiful sunset. It's the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen. So my recommendation, go for walks, get some fresh air. In these stressful times, it will definitely help you. Keep your eyes and ears open. Everything that you see on the news has to go through a thorough analysis. Don't believe everything you see and read in the media. And thirdly, folks, keep an eternal perspective. When Jesus comes, again, that's the super communistic view here, to bring his kingdom from heaven onto earth, he will be here with a very advanced technology, folks, very, very advanced. In fact, what Jesus represents is a technology that's millions of years ahead of our silly technology here, that we still use internal combustion engines. Can you believe that? Internal combustion. It's so primitive. It's just unbelievable. We think we're so advanced. We're just we are pathetic, folks. And so when Jesus will bring his technology, his reality to us, we will be amazed. What technology am I talking about? Read Elijah, when he described, when Elijah was from the Old Testament, when Prophet Elijah was taken into heaven alive, he did not see death. He called it, he was picked up by the chariot of God. So 2 round cylindrical wheels that were rotating in the opposite direction. They had blue lights in them, and it made an enormous noise, and there were two angels wearing helmets, using contemporary language. Wherever the angel looked, that's where the wheel turned and flew in the sky, through the sky. So that's an equivalent in today's language. We would say it's a UFO, or some kind of a spacecraft that uses anti-gravity or zero-point energy source, new type of propulsion. So all I'm saying is I'm connecting the dots. What Elijah described in the book of, read Elijah, I believe it's chapter 7, verse 13, when he describes that, he called it, quote-unquote, chariot of God, but today we would call it advanced spacecraft. When Jesus comes with his advanced technology, folks, this whole nonsense here with internal combustion engines, with these silly computers and this, internet speed 50 megabits per second or 100 megabits per second, even 1 gig per second, or more, like with 5G or 6G tech. This whole nonsense, it's so primitive. It's so primitive. It does not even come close. It does not even compare. So keep your eyes on the most advanced technology that's in heaven. Keep your eyes on Jesus, or just, if you're a Muslim, just keep your eyes on God and Him only, and your Prophet Muhammad, because in these turbulent times there is the dark force and the light force, and it's like a yin and yang. We have to choose. It's like all one big gigantic test to determine what will we choose at the end. And based on this analysis here, based on what we're going to choose, will determine our future. Yes, it's all one big gigantic test, and if you are spiritually minded, if you seek God and His truth and His wisdom, He will send His angels to help you and protect you. He will send you this message, people like me, who will open your eyes and ears and your mind and prepare you to get closer to God, to be on His frequency. What is God's frequency? Well, folks, the frequency of God is not our frequency. In order to be able to understand God, or to hear His voice, so to speak, we have to prepare ourselves, because we are indeed in a drunken state of our mind. Even if you don't touch alcohol, everything that you see here, all the news and everything that been bombarded us information, and from our parents from day one when we arrive into this world, it's all mostly kind of a very, very convoluted, very wrong type of information. So to peel that off and to hear the voice of God, you have to go through a 7-day fast, at least 7 days, preferably 40 days. That's why Jesus went into the desert. So there's a desert experience today that you can go through the Madonna House in Canada. They provide a cabin, a Bible, and a candle. There's no food, so you don't need to eat anything, just drink the water. Meditate on the frequency of God, and by the 7th day you'll be able to read people's thoughts. You'll be able to understand the language of the animals. They do have their own language, by the way. It's not human. They don't write emails, obviously. They don't use video cameras, but they do have their own language, a language of their own. Yes, it's hard to describe, but they kind of communicate in this sort of a innocence, or in this purity sense and protective sense. They do have their own, if you will, vocabulary. And so all the saints, or the early fathers of the church, prior to 1054 AD, before the Great Schism, when the church was split into the Eastern and the Western. The Western became the Roman Catholic Church, and the Eastern became the Greek and Russian Orthodox Church. Before the schism of 1054 AD, folks, used to be one church, and all the saints, or the early fathers, used to be able to understand, and it's written everywhere. Just read, folks. They were able to understand the language of the animals, and they fed them. When a bear would come to visit such saint or such elder, he would give it everything he's got, just because there was this most incredible connection between that saint and the animal. And when the local peasants or the dwellers of the village say, well, this is dangerous, do you want us to kill this bear or this wolf? He says, no, this is my little brother here that comes to visit me to make sure that I'm okay. You see, folks, that shows you the power of the connection to the other side, to the animal kingdom. And so I'm going to wrap up by just sort of summarizing everything. So first you go on a fast, 7 days, MadonnaHouse.org. The lady who started that movement, her name is Catherine DeHook. She was born in 1900, Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord, in Russia, of all places. She came to Canada in 1921, and she started out as a Catholic, got converted into Orthodoxy, and she started the Madonna House for the most authentic experience. It's called the Pustynia. She wrote the book called Pustynia. Pustynia is the Russian word for the desert. So when you go into the desert, she describes how to do it. So look up the book, Pustynia, or The Desert, by Catherine DeHook, DeHueck. Or simply go to MadonnaHouse.org and look up their schedule when they're open. If you want to be serious, if you want to truly find the frequency of God and reach God and hear His voice, this is the only way I know how. I've been through that journey myself, and it's incredible. I thought I knew something about the Bible. I didn't know anything until I went on this experience. And that experience itself, kind of indescribably, it outdid anything that you can do through your own study, like reading the Bible and stuff like that. It's a completely different experience. I urge you to do that if you are serious about finding God, the frequency of God, understanding who you are, what you do on this planet, where you're headed, who are the angels, how God commands His angels to come out and protect you and guard you, and how when they see that you're disobedient, remember, they see everything. The angels, both the demons and the angels, are called, they used to be called in the ancient times, those who never sleep, because they don't require sleep. They are these spiritual beings without physicalities. They don't have the flesh and bone type of appearance like we do. They're from a different, they're a different life form, if you will, that is much more powerful with their intellect and much more, they can bend reality that we cannot fathom. What Jesus did when He walked on the water, I mean, that's nothing compared to what they can do. You understand? It's a different realm. Once you get into the realm, you could do miracles. And that's what Jesus said. You shall do even, He said, don't wonder, you will do the same things, even greater things. When He did a miracle, when He caused a fig tree to wither away because it didn't have any figs on it, when He was hungry, He said, let you be accursed and no fruit will ever grow in you, and the tree immediately withered. And the disciples said, how is it possible? The fig tree literally just in front of our eyes withered away and died. He says, I mean, you wonder because you just saw this little stunt? Don't wonder, you can do the same things, even greater things. So my point, folks, everything will open up. You'll be able to raise people from the dead. You can literally walk on fire, walk on water, and that's just the beginning. This is what Agape Ministry does. My ministry here, Agape Ministry, its job is to introduce you to that other reality, other much more advanced realm, where you would be more fulfilled and much more, shall we say, much closer to God. You'll be like God in a good sense, not in the self-elevating sense, but in the way God wants you to be, essentially, in that proper station. Station is your position in life. So on this note, folks, tonight's Agape Ministries episode was again outdoors, in case if you're stuck with this fake COVID-19 pandemic inside, so you had a chance to kind of walk with me and feel this beautiful air, about 71 degrees Fahrenheit, about, what is it, 22 degrees Celsius. It just rained, so the temperature is quite nice at this little lake here. And I highly recommend you do the same. Go on daily walks, go for jogging, and you will be much healthier that way. So watch our other videos, folks, on our channel. Everything that you need will come through our videos. This is the medium today. everything you will need. If you're a business-minded, entrepreneurially spirited person, and if your business has failed, or if you got fired, you got laid off with this COVID-19 pandemic, the only other thing I could sort of recommend is doing international commodities trading. I started doing that after I got out of currency trading, and the commodities trading business, because it's international, everybody uses commodities, it will never go away. It was never impacted by this pandemic. Nothing will stop that business, because global trade cannot be stopped, and it's a non-stop 24/7 type of a business. That's why I highly recommend that you look into that, or you could simply write to me and make an introduction, and I take on 1 to 2 new proteges per month. By protege, I mean new students that I kind of introduce them to this business. What's the potential? You say the potential is $100K a month. That's on the low end. $100,000. That's netting. Each transaction is about $10 million each contract. So its monthly volume is about 10 million, and 100,000 would be you would be netting 100,000 on the low end. And if you have multiple such contracts in parallel to each other, so you do the math. You could have 100 to 900,000 coming in every month residually from those transactions. All you have to do is maintain that relationship after you get that contract signed with your party overseas, and you basically will be bringing energy sources across the globe. I don't mean, when I say commodity, I don't mean toothpaste and toilet paper. I don't mean that. I mean bigger commodity items, energy-based, something that the energy-hungry economies of the world rely on, that cannot be stopped, meaning the supply cannot be stopped. So that's why nothing affects them. When you go to the pump, remember, you got gasoline, and there's no, this little sneezing pandemic, fake pandemic, will not stop people from delivering gasoline, because it's a big business. Same thing here. That's the business I was referring to, that I'm willing to introduce to several people who will impress me with their writing. So they have to stand out. So to inquire about this, to write to me, go to www.iwantabundancetoday.com, fill out the entire form, and in that form, just write about you, where you are, where you live, your background, your educational background, where you went to school, how big is your family, that type of thing. I want to know everything about you, and you have to stand out, grammatically correct sentences for me to like you, to respond to you by email. And then we'll get on the phone and I'll introduce you to this business. So that's my ministry, folks. Spiritual, health-based, geopolitics. Yes, we do talk about politics. We talk about everything. No topic is out of reach. We touch every single hot topic on the planet. On this note, I want to wish you all the best. May the angels of God be with you and with your family to keep you safe, and most importantly, on the frequency of God. Take care, God bless you, and I'll see you at the very top.